I want to thank everybody for making the time this afternoon to come out and learn a little bit more about digital signage. My name is Steve Freeman. I am one of the senior account managers for JANUS Displays. And I'm curious, before we start with the presentation and the overview, how many folks in the room have previous experience implementing a digital signage system? Okay, almost half the group, I think, which is more than what I expected. So it's interesting, I had informed one of our existing clients who happened to join us here today that this is going to be a relatively straightforward and simplistic overview of digital signage. And starting, the way I've structured this presentation is I want to take us through what I have to assume that even those in the room that haven't implemented a digital signage system, you at least have awareness of how properties are using digital displays in a traditional sense. So the way I've structured the presentation is to take us kind of through a step-by-step process of
attention HITEC attendees,
traditional uses for digital displays,
elevating
and then coming to more of the
digital
advanced
signage is about to begin
slash non-traditional uses for digital displays. So to begin with, just a quick overview of the traditional uses. And the first few examples that I have visually, and I apologize, I didn't realize this was going to be so washed out by the light from above, but hopefully you can see the content that we're going to be showing front and up. But what we're showing here in the first example is a very traditional non-interactive display that would be positioned perhaps in the lobby or maybe in the pre-function space, where the main objective is going to be to identify all of the day's events that are taking place in the conference space. You know, dating back to 29 years ago when Sharon, who's also joining us, when she started our company, we didn't have all of these fancy creative element capabilities, right? You had the option of either doing green letters or red letters with the old LED systems. Fortunately, technology has advanced to the point where you now have a tremendous amount of creative capabilities, but these traditional intentions of identifying who is in what meeting room, and that's where our system interfacing with event management systems such as Delphi and Daylight and Opera, and the list goes on and on, that makes that a very easy and seamless process for your sales and catering staff. But what we've also incorporated, kind of taking this example to the next level, is a three-dimensional rendering of the property itself, identifying where that person is standing as they're looking at that display and giving them a reference of where all of this meeting space is located. So one screen that ultimately is achieving a lot of information or a lot of content objectives in that one example. Another example, very similar to the previous example, we have the event schedule that you can hopefully see here on the left-hand side of the screen. We have the property map that's on the right-hand side of the screen. And below this is, again, I apologize, it's difficult to read, but we actually have a directory of shops that's in this multi-use facility. So not only is there the convention space, but there's also retail space that this particular client wanted to have represented on the display as well. Very straightforward example here next. This is for one of our Hilton projects. Very straightforward in the fact that you have half the screen dedicated to the event schedule that's coming from Delphi. You have the left-hand side of the screen that's dedicated to the three-dimensional property map. So a very straightforward, easy reference for your guests to look where their meeting is being held and then see that space on that three-dimensional map. And it really goes to the point of the title of this particular presentation is increasing the guest experience through digital displays, right? So what we're ultimately doing is taking information that you would traditionally print in some form or fashion, be it on paper, be it on maybe some type of laminate that gets placed in a light box, but we're replacing those old, can't call them technologies, old methods of displaying information, and we're moving that into a digital format. So our first example of something that's not related to events, and this would be with a menu board that's outside of one of your food and beverage outlets, to simply make it a digital option for identifying specials for the day, easily updated items and pricing for those items. All of that being done through the same system that's ultimately controlling your event information as well. We next have our first example of the displays that would be located outside of individual meeting rooms. So these are what we call our room boards, and can be various sizes, traditionally 15-inch, 17-inch, 19-inch size displays. But the intent with these meeting room displays is to show what is happening inside of any one room at any given time. So again, going back to the interface that you would have with your Delphi system, your Daylight, your Opera system, this particular display would be programmed to know to look at the information applicable for that one room only. Now, a lot of people ask us, okay, well, when the day is over and we no longer have anything scheduled for inside that room, does the screen just go blank? Or does it have to be black? Can we show something else? And the answer is definitely yes, you can show something else. So one more example of what we would show in the term or in the realm of the event information for these smaller displays. And hopefully you can see the detail in this picture. I know it's all white and it's washed out to begin with. But when that meeting room is not actually holding an event, what many of our customers will do is turn that display into a marketing board. So start promoting food and beverage specials, start promoting upcoming events that are taking place. Maybe it's 2 weeks, a month, 2 months from now. You're going to have that programming capability within the system. So when we talk about a potential return on the investment, it's thinking about not just educating the customers with the information they need now, but also the promotions of upcoming events that can ultimately generate revenue for the property. And then last but not least, in the realm of non-interactive displays, we have what's become, especially over the last, I would say 5 years, is where we've seen the increase in the requests for the emergency messaging capability. So when you think about the tsunamis that have affected every corner of the globe, earthquakes, tornado warnings, other natural disasters, our client base came in and we developed a easy-to-use functionality within our system that enables a property to send out emergency updates for their entire system through one click of the button. So, one example of that. Now, the next step, as I mentioned, we're going to kind of take this through a progression of capabilities, is getting into the realm of touchscreens, interactive displays. So we're going to show several examples, and we're calling this our virtual concierge. So what most of our clients have asked us to do in helping them with the touchscreen capabilities is to program the system with information that a guest would typically walk to a person, be it the concierge, be it the front desk, be it the general manager, and ask the question, where can I find fill in the blank? What do you recommend for fill in the blank? Having that information at the guest's fingertips through these large format touchscreens, this has been an extremely powerful way of enabling a guest that wants to access that type of information on their own versus having a conversation. This has been a fantastic way of doing this. As a society, we've become dependent upon information that's in our hands, that's at our fingertips. These interactive digital displays have enabled that same expectation when the guests come to your property. So we're going to go through a few examples, kind of in the order of popularity, if you will, incorporate some type of property wayfinding. So in most cases, it is true interactive wayfinding, which allows a guest to select a specific destination within the property, and then our system will provide again, I apologize, it's tough to see the detail, but we will provide step-by-step, turn-by-turn pathways from where that display is located, ultimately to where they need to be. Okay? So a few more examples of the property, the interactive mapping. And all of these examples that we're flipping through, I should have mentioned this earlier, we're showing live examples of all of this same capability in our booth, which is booth 725. So to come especially interact with some of these touchscreens would be a great opportunity to do that. This particular project at the Win is one that I have to mention. We won an award for earlier this year for the content that was created. It was very custom. For those that may know the reputation that Mr. Wynn has, he is very exact with what he wants from a visual aspect for anything that goes into his properties. And our system reflects his very exact specifications, and we're very proud of that. And here's what's becoming a very popular solution, and especially resort properties that have several buildings perhaps as part of a campus of buildings across the property, where you have two screens that would be side by side. In this example, the left-hand screen is dedicated to showing the event list, because you could have, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 square feet worth of meeting space. So the left-hand screen in this example is dedicated to the event schedule. And then as a customer would press that particular event, the screen on the right would then switch into the interactive property map. And then last but not least, another example here of one of the displays that we're showing in our booth. The interactive capability doesn't have to be confined just to wayfinding. We have, in this example, the interactive menu board that we designed for a property out in, I believe, Carlsbad, California. And allowing, again, the property is able to showcase specials of the day, promote certain items, but make it very easy for a guest to see the options available in that F&B outlet and make the determination to obviously come in. So some of the ancillary uses for these displays, think about, again, the questions that a guest would typically ask. In this case, where can I get an updated flight schedule and where can I print my boarding pass? We've enabled this same touchscreen, this virtual concierge, to have one of the buttons be flight data and then ultimately print the boarding pass for that applicable flight. So these next couple screenshots will give us kind of the step-by-step process of what the guest will see as they're walking through that. And then what we have labeled here as Bing mapping. This is the capability that we have enabled with our systems to allow the property to choose the top restaurants, the top shopping destinations, the points of attraction, be it historical or recreational points of attraction, that you can program into your digital display, and thus it allows the guests to see your recommendations and to ultimately either print directions to take with them, or they can email those same directions to their handheld and have those directions available as they're driving to that particular destination. And some of our customers have actually taken the step of using this functionality to actually charge restaurants whatever outside partners they may have with having a preferred listing on the digital display under that particular category. So again, a potential return on that investment. And just another example of how the Bing mapping function works and how it looks as you choose a specific destination. Interactive event lists. This often works hand in hand with the interactive property map. So allowing a guest to search through an interactive list of the day's events, make a specific selection of the event that they're attending, and then it would in turn switch to the interactive property map that's going to give the very detailed directions from point A to point B. as you see in the next example here. And then kind of finishing out, what are the typical additional items that we build into these interactive systems? Let's take advantage of whatever retail amenities, be it recreational amenities, other on-site amenities that you want to showcase and give the guest easy access to through this touchscreen. And that's ultimately the process that we take with each of these systems, is determining what makes the most sense for your property and what needs to be showcased in the digital display. Okay, it's a very collaborative process that we work with each of these implementations. And then the last couple examples that we're showcasing here under the interactive capability is the functionality to enable multiple languages. So as I personally started traveling up in Canada, the question inevitably came up, well, what about incorporating French along with English? And this particular project for the Fairmont Chateau Laurier in Ottawa is one where we have both French and English as the selection you can make from the home screen. And once the selection has been made, the rest of that information that is accessed will be in the selected language. So I think to date we've done French, Russian, Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, correct? We did Creole for a project, believe it or not, and Spanish with a couple of our projects in Florida. So think about that as it may apply to your guest population and having that multi-language capability. So this screenshot is showing us the English version, and then the next screenshot shows us what happens if they have selected French. Again, going up the progressive ladder of kind of the newer technologies now, the next is the mobile application. And we really just have this, I think maybe a couple slides for this. In a nutshell, what this is doing is enabling a guest to have access to the same information that we just talked about with the virtual concierge on the big format display, to have that same information in their palm of their hands on their mobile device. The way that we are enabling this capability, and it'd be a great opportunity to see this again in our booth, is if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the big screen, you see the QR code. If you scan that QR code, it will then link you to the mobile version of all of the same functional data. So the event schedule, the flight data, the Bing mapping, the property map. I do want to highlight the difference. The property map will no longer be a true interactive property map. It will be a static, non-movable property map, but it's still a visual reference that they can have as they're walking around the property. And there was one more example here. So these QR codes in the mobile interface can apply to, again, all of this information that you're providing on the large format display. So this has been received extremely well, not just from a guest perspective, but also from the employee perspective at a hotel, where the banquet services manager can have this mobile application on his or her device, and they don't need to run back to their office, and they don't need to run to the public space display. They have it right there in the palm of their hand. Video walls. Again, going up the progressive ladder of capabilities here, video walls have exploded over the last couple of years. We're showing just two of our examples of what we've done, but the easiest way of talking about video walls is it takes the visual impact of digital signage and makes it larger than life, because it allows you to create these extremely large formats, these extremely large images that you are then programming. Is what we were talking about before. It could be event schedules, it could be your property map, it could be a food and beverage promotion, or in the case of what we're doing with Rosen Properties in Orlando, they're using a video wall to create a a theme, a vibe, just an overall feel for the lobby by having, I guess, nature scenes, for lack of a better description, that will play and create just an overall feel as a guest enters that lobby space, and doing so in a very large format visually. So it just basically makes it impossible for the guest to miss your message in these large formats. And then lastly, we have the realm of outdoor digital displays. It's not new. These have been available now for, I think we did our first outdoor digital display 4 years ago as part of one of our projects. And this is actually that very first project down in Aruba. And these displays look just as bright as the day that we installed them 4 years ago. But enabling this capability of digital and electronic communication outside your property, and this would be very applicable for, again, the larger resorts that have multiple buildings, a campus type setting where you may have 2 or 3 properties in close proximity and people may be walking between the properties. This is your chance to hit them with those messages even when they're outside of the property itself. And these outdoor displays can be both interactive and non-interactive. So the same capability that we were talking about with all the previous examples can apply to those outdoor displays as well. So I flew through that hopefully not too quickly, but I wanted to leave time for questions before the next session takes over. Okay. We've actually explored it. For those that didn't hear the question, he's asking about interactive capability that doesn't require actually touching the screen. Did I hear that correctly? We've explored, and I'll say that we've taken baby steps in exploring this, but enabling gesture-controlled capability. I think that's what you're hinting at, correct? The Connect, I was talking with Mike here before the session started, and he referenced a Connect example that a gentleman was talking about yesterday in one of the presentations. So it's being explored, but I don't know that it will ever replace that tactile, true interactivity. I think we're programmed mentally to have that familiar touching with our mobile devices, our personal devices, which in turn makes us comfortable doing it with the larger displays, in my opinion. Good question, though. Any other questions? Yes?
You had said that the menus would come up through the same system that is currently controlling your event. What software do you currently interact with for that, or is it? For
the menu specifically?
Yeah.
Well, are you asking would we interface with maybe your point of sale system?
Yeah.
The answer at this point is unfortunately no.
Okay.
But what we would do is we would enable our software to be very easy to update. It's basically a template that you would go into to update. If a menu item needs to change or the price needs to change, it would be as easy as updating an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
But at this point, there's not a direct interface with the point of sale system. When you get into those types of interfaces, you get into PCI compliance, which at this time we're trying to avoid that.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Good question. Yes? At this time, correct. So the traditional interface for digital displays, from our perspective, in the 29 years that we've been doing this, the traditional interface, which we've been doing for almost all of those 29 years, is the interface with your event management systems. the Delphis, the Daylights, the Operas. There's several others. And the interface could possibly just be a Microsoft Outlook interface. But it makes it an easy way for you to get that updated event schedule out to that digital display. Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Yes.
You guys progressing with CITY with Marriott?
Absolutely, yes. Very proud of the fact that we are interfacing with CITY. That was an effort that took a few years to get down that road, but yes. We have the blessing from, I don't know if you know the name Carl Weigel, but he is the one that we work with directly at Marriott Corporate. And we've actually implemented the interface with now what has to be close to a dozen different Marriott properties. Well, for those that have additional questions, again, booth 725, I'd be happy to see you there. Hopefully I'll be a little cooler in the booth than I was in here. So thanks for making the time, everyone. Appreciate it.